Good morning. Hello and welcome to this webcast on the IFRS Taxonomy 2020 that we published in March. I am Anne Tarca, board member, and today I am joined by Vivek Baid, a member of the technical staff. This webcast is one of many educational materials on the IFRS Taxonomy that are available on our website, that is ifrs.org. Before we start, just a couple of housekeeping items. Firstly, the IFRS Taxonomy 2020, all supporting materials and the slides that we'll be using in this webcast are available for download on our website. You can find the link to the project webpage in this slide deck. Secondly, the views expressed in today's webcast are those of the presenters and do not necessarily reflect those of the board or the IFRS Foundation. Now let's look at what we will cover today. Firstly, we'll provide an overview of the IFRS taxonomy and how it fits into a central theme of the board's work. Next, we will focus on the 2020 IFRS taxonomy and highlight key changes from the 2019 IFRS taxonomy. Then we will provide an overview of the IFRS taxonomy formula link base. We will then look at the supporting materials that are available to help you access the IFRS taxonomy and further understand its content. And finally, we will highlight some of the upcoming proposed taxonomy updates that we are planning to issue in the year 2020. We will end the webcast by pointing out the ways in which you can stay up to date and contribute to the IFRS taxonomy activities. Let's begin with a brief overview of the IFRS taxonomy. The board is looking at how it can improve the communication of information in financial reports. We're exploring improvements to both the content of financial reports and how that content is delivered. We have labelled this work Better Communication in Financial Reporting. It forms one of the central themes of the board's work plan. The IFRS taxonomy is an important part of the better communication theme. We have four main components to the theme. The first component, the Primary Financial Statements project, is looking at how to improve the presentation of information in the primary financial statements. It is focusing on improvements to the structure and content of the Statement of Financial Performance. The second component, the Disclosure Initiative, is looking at how we can improve disclosures in financial statements. The third component is looking at how to improve the information in the front half of financial reports, for example, in the management commentary or MD&A. And then finally, the IFRS taxonomy provides the means by which this information can be delivered to users of financial reports. It addresses the needs of those users that prefer to receive IFRS financial information in an electronic format. The content of the IFRS taxonomy is sourced from three main areas. Firstly, from the presentation and disclosure requirements in the IFRS standards. Secondly, from the presentation and disclosure examples and implementation guidance that accompany the IFRS standards. Finally, it includes content that reflects common reporting practice. The taxonomy team undertake reviews of reporting practice to identify disclosures that are not specifically required by IFRS standards, but are frequently provided across a range of companies and jurisdictions, and is consistent with the requirements of IFRS standards. Currently, we are reviewing the reporting practice for the Primary Financial Statements project. This slide illustrates how a company uses the IFRS taxonomy to communicate information. Companies use elements from the IFRS taxonomy to tag information in their financial reports. In this case, the company uses the cost of sales element to tag its cost of sales of $8,200. Tagging information in this way enables software to quickly extract the information and compare it to the same information provided by other companies reporting electronically. This makes it easier and quicker for users of financial statements to analyse financial information. In addition to providing element labels, the IFRS taxonomy includes other attributes, such as the element reference and the documentation label, to help preparers understand the accounting meaning of the element. As you can see, the element reference identifies the content area that the element is sourced from. In this case, the cost of sales element is associated with the disclosure requirements in paragraph 99 and 103 of IAS 1. The documentation label provides a description of the information that can be tagged with this element. The IFRS Foundation's Due Process Handbook establishes the process for developing the taxonomy. The process starts once possible changes to the taxonomy have been identified. This can occur in one of three ways. The first is when the board issues or amends IFRS standards. The second is when the IFRS taxonomy team identifies new elements as a result of a review of common reporting practice. The third is through the identification of general improvements to the IFRS taxonomy. General improvements usually result from stakeholder feedback. For taxonomy content arising from new or amended IFRS standards, the board approves the content changes. For common practice and general improvement projects, the content changes are reviewed by the IFRS Taxonomy Review Panel. This review panel consists of 3 to 5 board members. Any changes to the IFRS taxonomy, whether they arise from changes to the standards, common reporting practice, or identified general improvements, are subject to public consultation before they are finalised. This is done through the publication of a proposed taxonomy update. In addition, the IFRS Taxonomy Consultative Group provides technical advice and guidance on all updates to the IFRS taxonomy. The group consists of external experts with appropriate knowledge of accounting and taxonomies. The annual IFRS taxonomy incorporates updates finalised during the year. As a result, it is not subject to a separate consultation process. I'll now hand over to Vivek to tell us more about the IFRS Taxonomy 2020.
Thank you, Anne. Now we will elaborate on the content of the 2020 IFRS Taxonomy and how the new content has been identified. The 2020 IFRS Taxonomy was released in March this year. It reflects the IFRS standards as at 1st of January 2020, including those that have been issued but are not yet effective. The IFRS taxonomy also includes elements for reporting based on the IFRS for SMEs standard and the practice statement on management commentary. So, what is new in the 2020 IFRS taxonomy? 6 new elements are added to the taxonomy to reflect the disclosure requirements of interest rate benchmark reform, which amended IFRS 9, IAS 39 and IFRS 7. No changes have been made to the content for the IFRS for SMEs standard or management commentary. Next, we will provide an overview of the IFRS taxonomy formula link base. The 2020 IFRS taxonomy formula link base was released with the 2020 IFRS taxonomy. It includes validations of certain business logic rules in the XBRL filings based on the IFRS taxonomy. There are 2 separate groups of formulas, one for full IFRS standards and the other for IFRS for SMEs standard. The IFRS taxonomy formula link base has 7 categories of formulas which are described on this slide. For more details about the formulas and how they can be used to improve the data quality of electronic filing, you can refer to the formula link base guide available on our website. Next, we will highlight different resources on our website that you can use to view and further understand the content of the IFRS taxonomy depending on your needs. These 3 resources will help you access and view the IFRS taxonomy. The first resource is the IFRS Taxonomy Illustrated or the ITI. The IFRS taxonomy comprises a set of electronic XBRL files. Therefore, those that do not have specialized software can find the files difficult to use and understand. The ITI illustrates the IFRS taxonomy in a simplified human-readable format that is easier to use and understand. The ITI is available in both PDF and Excel for IFRS standards and the IFRS for SMEs standard. The second resource is the versioning report. This resource is useful for those who want to understand the changes between the 2019 and 2020 IFRS taxonomies. This report shows those changes as track changes, like new elements that are added to the IFRS taxonomy are underlined and highlighted in green, and the elements that have been deprecated are struck through and highlighted in red. The third resource is XIFRS. This is a tool that provides a view of eIFRS with embedded IFRS taxonomy elements. It allows the user to view all IFRS taxonomy elements that are available to tag the disclosure requirements in a paragraph or section of an IFRS standard. The next two resources will help you in further understanding the content of the IFRS taxonomy. The first is the documentation labels and implementation notes. Implementation notes are also called as implementation labels or guidance labels. So documentation labels provide a definition of each element that are mainly sourced from the IFRS standards and their accompanying materials. Implementation notes provide guidance as to the correct use of IFRS taxonomy elements. The documentation labels and implementation notes are provided together in Excel. The last resource is our tagging examples. These examples show how the presentation and disclosure examples that accompany the IFRS standards can be tagged using the IFRS taxonomy elements. A number of other resources, including some useful guides, are available on the IFRS taxonomy page. This, for example, includes Preparer's Guide and Formula Guide. These guides will be helpful to understand the content of the IFRS taxonomy and the validations provided by the formula link page, respectively. There is a dedicated page on our website that hosts the 2020 IFRS taxonomy and its supporting materials. You can access that page through the path highlighted on this slide. Now I'll hand over to Anne to explain more about what we are working on right now.
Thanks, Vivek. Next, we will update you on some upcoming updates to the IFRS taxonomy. On this slide, we describe some amendments to the IFRS standards that would require updates in the IFRS taxonomy. However, we think that these amendments to the IFRS standards would have limited impact on the IFRS taxonomy. The taxonomy team have been reviewing extensions created in the note of employee benefits as per IAS 19 and the primary financial statements filed with the US SEC by the foreign private issuers to identify new common practice elements that should be added to the taxonomy. We expect to issue the proposed updates to the IFRS taxonomy arising out of these common practice reviews later this year. On the 16th of July, we published a proposed update to the IFRS taxonomy to reflect amendments to IFRS 17, IFRS 4 and IAS 16. The deadline to submit comments on this proposed update is the 14th of September 2020, and we look forward to hearing from you with your comments. We would like to invite you to get involved with our work on the IFRS taxonomy. How can you stay in touch with us? Well, firstly, you can follow the IFRS taxonomy page on our website. This will allow you to receive email notifications on news alerts highlighting our various activities and updates to educational materials. Secondly, you can shape the development of the IFRS taxonomy by commenting on our proposed taxonomy updates. Additionally, you can contact us via email with questions, comments, or suggestions for improvements. And finally, you can observe public meetings of the IFRS Taxonomy Consultative Group, either online or in our office. Meeting notes are posted shortly after each meeting. We hope that you have found this webcast helpful in understanding the 2020 IFRS Taxonomy, the changes from the 2019 IFRS Taxonomy, and the related supporting materials. Thank you.